So this review is going to be a little bit different to how I usually do my Smackdown reviews. Usually I'll just talk about the show, bring in some topics, etc. But in this show I'm going to review the show and I'm going to, as I go along, give some of my predictions going into Money in the Bank, because we're not going to be uploading a preview video this week with NXT now being on Saturdays. While I'm here, I'll also want to give a big shout out to Anything Goes show WWE, who will be at Money in the Bank, and I hope the show is good for their sake, and I hope you two enjoy it. I'm very close friends with these two guys, so I hope they enjoy the show. Anyway, let's get onto this quasi-Smackdown review / Money in the Bank predictions video. So we had Jey Uso versus Seth Rollins, which was there to hype up the pre-show tag team title match between the Usos and the Shield. Seth Rollins gets the pin here in what basically just felt like your basic go-home, let's hype this sort of filler match kind of segment. And in my opinion, giving Seth Rollins the win here was a good idea, because the Usos have been booked quite strong, as they've only really just come into the ranks, etc., into the tag team championship scene, and you kind of had to give Rollins, or you had to give the Shield a win at some point. As for the match at Money in the Bank on the pre-show, Shield are winning. There's no way the Usos are going to win. It's just, I think Usos are there just to fill time between Shield and the Shield's next opponents, which will hopefully be a lot more credible. But it's nice to see the Usos getting some kind of pay-per-view spot, even if it is in the pre-show. So we have Chris Jericho versus Curtis Axel. I think these guys have now faced off 3 times, which is quite funny. Chris Jericho wins this match via a count-out, and all I can say is at least when Curtis Axel lost, he didn't lose clean, which was a good thing in my opinion. You don't really want your Intercontinental Champion to look weak going into a pay-per-view, which is generally what WWE do with their Intercontinental and US Champions. They're generally enhancement fodder for bigger matches and bigger personalities such as Chris Jericho. It was interesting though, you had Curtis Axel going mental after the match after he lost, and that's a good little character trait for Curtis Axel. When he loses, he gets pissed off. He really cares about keeping his belt, and when he loses a match, he gets pissed off, because that's what you would do if you were trying to prove a point. If you were a Paul Heyman guy and you had all this pressure on you, if you lost, you'd get pissed off. As for Curtis Axel versus The Miz, I do not see Curtis Axel losing to The Miz at all. I think Curtis Axel, after just winning the belt, is definitely going to retain the belt, and hopefully going into SummerSlam, they'll have some sort of bigger plan for Curtis Axel being a new character on the scene and being the Intercontinental Champion. So on Raw, Vicky Guerrero got fired and got replaced by Brad Maddox. Was anyone else just laughing at this? I was thinking to myself, let the McMahon humiliation and grudge with Vicky Guerrero continue. Well, to be honest with you, as much as Brad Maddox I'm not a massive fan of, Vicky Guerrero was hardly doing anything as the general manager anyway, or the whatever the fucking supervisor manager she was. So, to be honest, in all, I don't care. And really, at the end of the day, it was all there to further on this storyline between Vince McMahon and also Triple H involving Stephanie McMahon, which apparently, according to Dirt Sheets, is going to be part of the WrestleMania 30 main event. Oh boy! As I've said before, WWE have done a great job lately in making me not care about Ryback, a guy who once I did really care about as a new guy coming into the scene as a babyface, as a monster babyface who represented something different in the WWE to your usual guy in the main event. But ever since his rapid, pointless heel turn, being fed to Cena, this cryback bullshit, and this, oh, I'm injured stuff, I just can't get behind this character anymore. I don't know what WWE doing with Ryback right now. I really don't. Has he pissed someone off backstage? Who really knows? Miz versus Ryback, I can't even remember what happened. Oh yeah, Ryback managed to pin Miz with the shell shock even though he had an injured knee. Okay, as for Jericho and Ryback at the pay-per-view, I could care less. I mean, Chris Jericho barely wins matches. Ryback has been on a pay-per-view loss streak that really he can't really come back from. So why really should I care about this match? Yes, Ryback will probably definitely win this match over a name like Chris Jericho, but I just don't care about Ryback right now because WWE have just done a terrible job of building him up into a main event guy. John Cena versus Mark Henry should be an interesting match. It should be pretty decent. I mean, you know, Mark Henry does kind of look like a legitimate threat going against John Cena. But the problem is, I guess, with us smart fans, we kind of know that Henry is just going to be there to be fed to Cena. And that kind of really makes you not enjoy the match as much, in my opinion, when you kind of know that that guy isn't going to win. But I guess at least it's a fresh matchup for Cena. We've never seen this match at pay-per-view before, I believe. And Mark Henry has done some really good work as a heel, and he's up against John Cena, who generally delivers in main events. So this should at least be a decent match, in my opinion, for the WWE Championship. So who else had to do a double take when they saw that the Divas feud got a contract signing? You know, I think this shows you how good this feud has actually been via Divas standards. So the fact that they've had some kind of contract signing going into a pay-per-view match. And also, did anyone else find it funny that AJ Lee said that no one cared about the Divas division until she was champion? And then Teddy Long said, we ain't got time for all this, when the segment actually carried on for another 5, 6, 7 minutes. As for the segment itself, you have AJ Lee letting out a load of Caitlyn's secret texts from the Secret Crush and everything. That was pretty good, getting into Caitlyn's head, etc. A decent exchange between them two on the mic, especially Caitlyn. And they end up brawling, etc. to end the segment, and I believe Caitlyn speared AJ as well. This should be a decent Divas match. If the payback match was anything to go by, this should be good. And like I said, via Divas standards, this feud has actually been cultivated quite well. We've had little character flaws here and there, and it should be a pretty good match between AJ and Caitlyn. I imagine this match may end the feud, so it should be a pretty good blow-off, in my opinion, unless they want to continue it on to SummerSlam. In my opinion, the SmackDown Money in the Bank go-home show segment was just lame. I mean, you had Wade Barrett versus Fandango, which Fandango wins via roll-up, and it's just the same-ass last-minute build for the SmackDown Money in the Bank, with some arguing going on at ringside between all the heels, and you know, it's just like, you know, it was just air. Do you know what I mean? It was just air, the segment, really, in my opinion. As for the SmackDown Money in the Bank, which I'm sure you're more interested about, Ambrose is the most built-up guy, in my opinion. Ambrose has had wins over guys like Ryback, Cena, Sheamus, Orton as part of the Shield. But knowing WWE, they'll give it to either Barrett, Rhodes, or Fandango. Basically, whoever wins this won't be any kind of credible #1 contender. So I'm thinking, if Ambrose doesn't win, then who is part of the Shield, who were once in a kind of main event angle on SmackDown, it's just not going to be a credible #1 contender. So what's the point? They're here. The Wyatt family debuted on Raw. And as you guys know, I am a massive fan of the Wyatt family, as you've seen in my NXT review. So there was no way I was going to miss talking about this segment. I absolutely loved the debut of the Wyatt family. Maybe it is due to my fandom of the Wyatt family, but I thought it was pretty damn good. They had video packages and stuff like that to kind of tease this, and the Wyatt family ended up attacking Kane. And it looks like as well that because of the attack, Kane is going to be out of Money in the Bank, and I suppose Bray Wyatt is going to be put in this All-Star Money in the Bank, which I guess could be a good thing. I guess the one negative aspect of this segment was nothing to do with the segment itself. It was to do with the fact that the fans were chanting Husky Harris. Fuck those fans for chanting Husky Harris. That is just some right smart-ass bullshit right there. But overall, I really love the Wyatt family debut, and I'm very interested to see where they're going to go with the Wyatt family, whether or not they're going to go against Kane. I hear that Undertaker is injured, and they were planning on doing a Brothers of Destruction versus Wyatt family match, and that's not going to happen, but I'm interested to see what they're going to do with the Wyatt family now. Even if it's only on Raw, I'm still going to talk about it in these reviews. So we had Sin Cara Del Rio for what I thought was going to be like the umpteenth time, but then it turned out that Sin Cara had a little bit of a trick up his sleeve. It seems like when you're Triple H's golden boy, you can just change like that into another superstar. Ziggler ended up being dressed as Sin Cara and ended up beating the shit out of Del Rio. I thought this was a pretty clever way of actually hyping the World Heavyweight Championship match, even though it wasn't our main event. It was just kind of in the middle. It was just kind of in a really random spot on the show. So as for Ziggler versus Del Rio at Money in the Bank, I think this match will be good and as a wrestling match, but I'm not really all that bothered about it. I mean, I'm more interested personally to see how WWE are going to approach Ziggler's babyface turn, how they're going to make tweaks to his character, and if they're going to actually try and make me like Dolph Ziggler. Did anyone else find it really funny that the Raw Money in the Bank was opening and closing SmackDown? Does anyone else just kind of find that quite funny? Because I did. We had the opener was Daniel Bryan versus Christian, and quite honest, to be honest with you now, going into Money in the Bank, I've just got sick and tired of seeing random-ass matches which are just there to hype up Money in the Bank that have no real reason to be there. It's just two guys fighting for no reason, and I don't really care. If Daniel Bryan and Christian was some kind of feud or was continuing some kind of feud, then maybe I would care about this match. And I'm sure this match was pretty good, but to me it just felt like two random people fighting for no particular reason, and it's very hard for me to really care about that. Daniel Bryan gets the win and really has a lot of momentum going into Money in the Bank right now, which is pretty good. A lot of fans will be very pleased that he's getting a lot of momentum. He ended Raw on top by holding the Money in the Bank at the end of the show. Will be interesting to see the ratings and the quarter-hour breakdowns for that one. Sheamus and Randy Orton was our main event. really didn't care about this match like I didn't care about the opener, because it's just two random guys facing off for a random reason just because they're in the Money in the Bank ladder match. So really, I'm not going to talk about the match. I'm going to talk about the post-match. You have Orton, Sheamus, Christian, and Bryan, 4 of 7 people who are in the Raw All-Stars Money in the Bank. They all try and beat each other up to climb to the top of the ladder, and Orton ends up clutching the Smackdown Money in the Bank, which, by the way, he won't be fighting for. I thought that was also quite funny. And to be honest with you, I really don't know who's going to win Raw Money in the Bank. You know, there's so much star power in there. I mean, it's not going to be RVD. It won't be Bray Wyatt if he's going to be there in there. So really, I don't really know. Daniel Bryan has gotten a lot of momentum going in, and it's definitely not going to be CM Punk with this Brock Lesnar program they're doing right now. So I don't really have a clue as to, you know, who is going to win the Raw Money in the Bank. I guess a lot of people would say Daniel Bryan, as he's at least been kind of built up to win it, but who really knows? Also, I wonder if the Raw All-Star Money in the Bank will main event Money in the Bank over John Cena versus Mark Henry. It has main evented Raw and the SmackDown Go-Home shows as the Raw All-Stars Money in the Bank. So will that be the main event? Will Cena versus Mark Henry be the main event? We don't really know. As for this show overall, I felt it was kind of a meh Go-Home show. They covered all the main matches. It was a typical SmackDown sort of let's just get to the pay-per-view Go-Home show. As for Money in the Bank, on paper, it looks like a decent card. We should get a lot of decent to good matches out of it. Do I care about it overly? Probably not. There are some matches like Jericho and Ryback, which I don't really care about. Del Rio and Ziggler, I'm a bit on. But the thing is with Money in the Bank is you're always interested to see who is going to win Money in the Bank. And if anything else, John Cena versus Mark Henry should be interesting because they built up to it quite well. And also, it's a fresh matchup for Cena. So please let me know your thoughts on this edition of SmackDown and also your thoughts going into the Money in the Bank pay-per-view. I have been Mr. Parkin. From me, Mr. Parkin, of course. Comment down below your thoughts. Thank you very much for watching. Goodbye.